Welcome to Washington School and our first presentation of the Parent Academy series. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Coy and Ms. Schmedding in a second, but I just wanted to welcome you here. There's coffee and munchkins. We have representation from all three of the buildings, some fantastic teachers that put together a presentation, and hope you enjoy and receive some valuable resource.
Hi, everyone. I am Megan Coy, and many of you have seen me at the Kindergarten Center, so it's nice to see so many familiar faces. I'm also the Parent Academy Coordinator, so we look for some topics to bring to our parent population and on different topics that we can help you to help your child at home. So there will be future events that are coming up. We'll advertise them. We'll have some new ones that haven't even been identified yet as we go through the school year. But we do appreciate that you're here. We're excited today to have our very first one. We weren't sure if we were going to have 5 people or 50 people, so I'm happy it's not the 5 people. But we are excited to work with you and to present some information to our community. So we turn it over to Ms. Schmedding, who is our supervisor at the high school.
Hi, everybody. My name is Danica Schmedding. I'm the STEM supervisor for the district, so I cover math and science for K-12. My background is as a high school math teacher, and I currently still teach some classes up at the high school, but I really have kind of spearheaded and I've been in charge of this whole transition as we move to a new math program. Now, I want to give you kind of a handful of background of how this happens, a lot of changes that we have made on the math aspect over the past few years in the district. So approximately 2 years ago, the district did a big overhaul and created a handful of committees. There was a math committee, a science committee, an academic alignment committee, and an English committee. And what it did is it looked at our programs across the entire district. So we did a deep dive. We had representatives from every school, different grade levels, all different areas covered, special education. We had guidance counselors just to look at an overview of what our programs, what we were doing great and what we could improve on. So on the math end, a few things we looked at were, number one, an elementary math program, whether it was fitting the needs of our students, hitting our standards appropriately, and kind of did a deep dive into that. We also looked at some changes in the middle school to strengthen our math skills there as they move on to high school. And then the high school, they'll see the ramifications. Luckily, there was one place we didn't make any changes on the high school, but they'll see the ramifications in a few years as we strengthen our elementary and middle school math. So very quickly, in the middle school math, one of the changes that we explored and put into play was changing our 8th grade math. What we had done is we had all of our students in 8th grade math taking Algebra 1. And we started to see as they got to high school and as they got to higher level math that, it almost as if when you do that, you're kind of rushing 8th grade math and Algebra 1 into 1 year. And we felt that their skills weren't strong enough. As they got to the stuff that was more complex, they needed a little bit more foundational work. And we felt in the middle school, a lot of the middle school teachers felt that we needed more time to work on those skills and that maybe a lot of our students weren't necessarily ready for Algebra 1 8th grade. Now, some students are, and we'll talk about that, but not everybody was. So we've made a shift, and this is the first year of that change where all 8th graders have gone from 7th grade math and instead of going to Algebra 1 are now going into Math 8. So they're really getting all the 8th grade standards, another year of math. Now, for the students that are ready for the accelerated classes and possibly ready for Algebra 1, that is still an option. So students can come into 7th grade taking an accelerated pre-algebra and still take Algebra 1, the accelerated class in 8th grade. So we're trying to fit the needs of all students and make sure that those students that are ready for Algebra 1 in middle school are there, but for the students that aren't ready, we are now giving them another year of foundational math support before they get to Algebra 1 in the high school. So far, I think the response has been great. The teachers are confident in those changes. We'll see the ramifications in the high school and as we move forward in our Algebra 1, test scores and so forth. But we're looking forward to seeing those changes because I think it will, giving an extra, you hate to say it, but an extra year of math will really benefit our students. Now, on the elementary end, and while you guys are all here, is to look at the change in our math elementary program. So for 15 or so years, we had been focusing on Math in Focus, which is a Singapore-based curriculum that had been around for a long time. So for students, if your child is in one of the upper elementary or middle school grades, you saw a lot of, those worksheets, those foundations, those strategies coming home. And the teachers and felt, and when we met as a committee, and part of this whole process was we had gotten a math committee together of just elementary teachers to examine different programs. We looked at probably 6 or 7 different popular programs that are see if they meet the needs of our students, of the state standards and what's mandated by the state in terms of what has to be taught on different grade levels. So we had a committee of math teachers together approximately almost 2 years ago now, where they started diving into about 6 or 7. We narrowed it down to our top 2 programs, had presenters come in, dive into the curriculum, dive into the resources, let this committee of teachers see what's available in these programs. Teachers went back to their buildings, met with grade level partners, met in departments, sat down with all of their colleagues to examine all of these and come up with pros and cons of all of these programs and what would best fit the students of Rutherford. By unanimous, a lot of feedback, Envision's math really stood out for a variety of reasons. One was it is aligned to our New Jersey state standards. It's going to give all of the resources that we need, all of the lessons, all of the standards that are mandated by the state that need to be taught in 2nd grade are covered in this program. Anything that needs to be taught in 6th grade, covered in this program. And to the depth and the rigor that we're looking for our students. We want to challenge our students. We want them to, it not only hits the foundational skills, but then it also pushes them and has that rigor that will challenge our students. And that's what we were looking for. So a lot of that went into that whole process. Now, starting approximately last spring, or actually last winter, early January, we had started bringing in presenters. We had known this change was coming. The decision was made. We brought in presenters to kind of, in I believe maybe March, we had presenters in to give a very brief overview, let all the teachers know, here's what this looks like, here's access to some of the materials, start diving in, start looking, start seeing what questions you have, what you like, what you're unsure of. Then we brought in June, we had that full day professional development day that we have. We had small groups working with representatives. So we had 3 different groups across the district working with curriculum experts from Envisions discussing strategies. What does a lesson look like? How do you get it on day 1? What does an everyday lesson look like? And our teachers here will go a little bit more what it looks like on every grade level, an overview, but we really wanted the teachers to be exposed to the people that are experts in this area. We also have recently on October 14th, I believe was the date, last Monday, we had representatives come in again in small groups. Now that you're in the program, now that you've got the starting lessons, now that what questions do you have? How do you enhance your lessons? How are we diving deeper into this program? We also will, throughout the year on grades K-6, have coaches coming in. So they'll come from the program. They're going to meet on grade level, discuss an aspect of the lesson that we want to improve upon and we want to get a better understanding of. They're going to meet with grade level teachers. So, for example, all the 1st grade teachers will meet. They're going to sit down. Here's some things we're going to focus on in this lesson. The curriculum experts from Envisions are going to then model those lessons, co-teach with the teacher, hand in hand. They're both going to teach a class. And the other 1st grade teachers are going to observe. And afterwards, they're going to sit down for a very deep debrief on what went well, what could we improve, why did we ask this question this way, why did we approach it this way. So that will happen, depending on the grade level, 2 to 3 times throughout this entire school year to make sure that we are supporting our teachers and helping them implement this the best way that they can. Okay, so that's a little bit of the boring overview of this. What is Envision? So Envisions involves a 3-step process. It ties in both problem-based learning. So the lessons are going to start problem-based learning. Then it'll take it into a visual learning. So it's going to, and the teachers, again, will explain a little bit more what it looks like on different grade levels. But the process is the same. It's a 3-step process. Problem-based learning, we look at a problem. Then we tie it into a visual representation, and then we're looking at practice, assessment, differentiation as that 3rd step when we go through. So that's how that's how a general lesson is approached, and it's designed to enhance their conceptual understanding. I'm going to come back in a little bit and talk a little bit more about how you can support at home. But first, before we do that, I'm going to let the teachers kind of talk about what it looks like on each grade, kind of a grade band, so you have an idea of what it looks like for your child when they're in their math class every day.
Yeah.
You got yours ready. There you go.
Hi and good morning. My name is Miss Balistieri. I have been here as a second grade teacher for the last 7 years, teaching math along with the other content areas. So we just started this Envisions program this year. Off the bat, 36 days in, and we are feeling really good about it, and the kids are starting to feel really nice about it. So I'm just going to provide a brief overview of what it looks like from the K to 2 level. You'll see with my presentation, I'm focusing a little bit on the second grade portion, that's what I'm comfortable with, and you can see what a lesson might look like for your child in grades K through 2. So it's always going to start with that problem-based learning. So it's almost, think of it as a do now, but at a very elementary level. So the solve and share has that interactive component, like a warm-up. And the idea here is to get the students thinking before we even tell them this is what we're learning today or this is how we're going to do it. So it's a problem that they can either solve independently. Maybe we're at the carpet and we're having everyone think on their own. Maybe we put them into pairs and they're thinking together. Maybe we're thinking as a group. But the idea is, and you'll notice this a lot throughout the curriculum, is where students are explaining the why, the how. Often what comes up in this program is explain your thinking, construct an argument. How did you get there? And what's really cool about that with these solve and shares is this child might say, well, I did this, this, and that. I wasn't even thinking that. This child wasn't thinking that. The child behind them did something completely different. So now we're all sharing what our brains did, how we got to that answer. So this is just a quick little example here. This is from topic 2. So if you're a second grade family, you know that your child has learned this. And it says the students in Miss Jen's class work in pairs. One student does not have a partner. How many students could be in Mrs. Jen's class? So what we might do here, and it says it below, is maybe we give everyone, this program comes equipped with a huge toolbox of different manipulatives. So maybe we give them their counters and we say, here's a handful of counters. One student doesn't have a pair, so how could we do it? And maybe this child is putting these counters into pairs of 2, and then they realize that one's left over. How many could there be? Maybe we might say, oh, we have an odd number of students in our class, find a partner, right? And then they could say, oh, how come someone's left out? And that we can get them thinking. So we can take this information, make it more meaningful to our classroom. Then the second step, this is that visual learning, practice, and problem solving. So after we do the solve and share and we get the kids thinking, and then they explain their thinking, the next step we're going to do is throw out this visual learning. It's an animated cartoon, little video clip. And the kids are now starting to learn these characters. You'll see them, they'll talk, they'll tell us hints and ideas. And sometimes too, these will even be some real life, real world problems too. And what they'll do is they'll model, they'll show these colorful manipulatives on the screen, and then sometimes they'll say, try it. And then a student can come up to the board and manipulate it. Or these characters will talk to the class and they'll say, you know, is this number even or odd? And the class will answer. And then the character will explain. So this is that direct modeling instruction. So instead of the children listening to just the teacher the entire time, they get a little 2-3 minutes of this visual learning clip. Followed from that is the convince me. So it's a little different than the solve and share because this is going to be the why. And even though it's a math program, we have our students now writing and explaining. Maybe it's not a complete sentence, but we are showing our thinking and how we got to that answer. So in this example, it says, is the number 10 even or odd? Draw a picture to show how you know. There's so many ways you can answer that, right? Is 10 even or odd? You might have a child make 2 rows of 5. You might have a child make 5 rows of 2. You might have a child make pairs and circle them up. And oh, no one's left out. Everyone has a pair. So then they're convincing us, and then we'll share out our answers. From there, we'll move into the guided practice. So that's that. It's kind of like that, you know, I do, we do, you do type of modeling. So that's that we do. We'll do it together. From there, it goes into the independent piece. So now that the children had all of those lovely components, the solve and share, the visual learning, the convince me, the guided practice. They're ready to try it on their own. As a teacher, especially at the elementary level, of course, we'll circulate, we'll help out students as needed, but they should try it first, right? They might ask for help, try it first, right? You just had those 4 pieces. And then from there, we can differentiate. We can note, what are we noticing? What are some patterns? What are some common mistakes? Within the independent piece is that problem solving. Now, this is where that rigor really comes in. Within that problem solving, you'll see construct an argument. You'll see an assessment practice. So every single lesson in this Envision program, every single lesson in each topic will have one assessment question that's preparing them for the end of unit assessment. So that one question may come up or will come up at the end of the unit on their topic assessment. And I could even show you really quickly too what this what the student workbook looks like. And it's going to sound really silly, but one major difference between this workbook and the workbooks we've had previously with the last curriculum, this one's in color. And the smallest detail makes the biggest difference, especially at the elementary level, because we can see these are different colors. They're 2 different parts. Some, in the past we might have had them like take out their crayon color to do the 2 different parts, but here it's already done for us. So again, the smallest detail makes the biggest difference. Very kid friendly. The hardest part of the program is ripping out the pages. But here you go. So it even says it right here: higher order thinking, assessment practice, Envision STEM. So these are pieces that are really going to challenge your elementary learners. And this is that assessment practice that is on every single topic, every single lesson within the topic that will show up on their end of unit assessment. And the end of unit assessment review is wonderful too. It mirrors what the assessment will look like. This way they can have teacher support while completing that to prepare them for the assessment.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I am Miss Alex Dimitriadis. I've been teaching 5th grade math and science at Pierpont School for 9 years, and I've been teaching 5th grade math for 11 years. So I'm going to be speaking to you about grades 4 through 5 and how Envision works in our Pierpont School. So similar to the elementary K through 2, we have a similar structure, but of course, because our students are hitting that next level, our problems are a bit more lengthy, a bit more language, more wordy, and more intense in a great way. So when we start every day, we always start with the solve and share as well. For us in 5th grade and in 4th and 5th grade, we might have the students pair up, we might have the students go into groups, but as Gina said, this solve and share is meant to have the kids thinking. Yesterday, for example, I am teaching multi-digit multiplication, and there was a question, the solve and share question regarded multiplying multi-digit numbers, although I haven't taught the students that yet. So they really had to take what they knew from their past math and bring it to the forefront to try and brainstorm, which right there, you already have them thinking. When that brain is already running and then I go to teach, we just see better results. Then I have a look back as a part of our solve and share, and that look back questions them. So it might be, how can we estimate to see if our answer is reasonable? Yesterday, it was, how can we check our work? I was blown away by the different answers, responses that students provided. I actually made a space for 5 different answers on the board for students to come up and show their work, because we had such a variety of knowledge of students coming from all different classrooms before mine to show how they showed their work, and everyone was correct. So this solve and share really sets us up for our problem. And then we have a convince me, which is constructing arguments. We really needed our students to not only compute, but to be able to explain their answers, to critically think, to construct arguments in math. And Envision really gives us that language and those skills to help these kids succeed in that way. At the 4th and 5th grade level, after we do our solve and share, we jump right into visual learning, same as K through 2. Our visual learning is, we still have those characters, right? They might not be so much on the forefront, but they're still very much there. We go through visual learning. At this step, I have students come to the front. I always have them bring a whiteboard or a notebook. So when we are answering the questions that the program is posing, we're doing so all together. This makes it So it's interactive, it's engaging, and students are wanting to learn. They're wanting to know what that next step is. They're wanting to problem solve. Problem solving can be scary for math students, and again, this program is just showing them that it's okay to challenge yourself, and it's okay to try again if we're not right the first time. So we do our visual learning. Once we're finished with visual learning, we move into guided practice, which again, it's the I do, we do, you do. So this is the we do section, as Gina said. So this is when we are posing these problems together. I have students go back to their seat, but we're still speaking as a whole class. And then finally, to ensure that students can compute properly on their own, we go into independent practice. So independent practice has 2 steps to it. First, we have that straight computation, making sure students understand the task at hand, the skill at hand, the content. And then we have the problem solving. The language I've seen in math just from spending this last month and a half teaching is absolutely fantastic. The way these kids are jumping into these problems when they would shy away originally is just, it's amazing. So we have STEM problems, we have constructing argument, higher order thinking, and then of course, we always have a question that will be on the assessment later on, which is very, very useful for students. There's one more step, step 3, and step 3 is for differentiation. So if I have students who I know are struggling, I have many different opportunities for them to learn beyond the workbook pages. And then for my students who need a challenge, I also am able to boost them. And I'm able to do this at the same time within the classroom because Envision provides all of these fantastic materials. We have digital math tools, so manipulatives online. We have reteaching videos online, reteaching assignments. We have pick a project. So after a few lessons within each topic, students can really get engaged and apply the math to real world problems, and they get to choose. And when kids get to choose, it really gets them excited about what they're doing. We have problem solving math, so including science in with math. This one's awesome, I love these. So we get big maths that have science facts on them, but then we have math problems having to do with the topic. So students get to answer math problems about real world science. We have Let's Investigate opportunities. Once again, just some more real world problem solving challenges for our students. 3-Act Math is very interactive. Students get to watch videos of other students learning the same skills they are and practice critique reasoning. So critiquing someone else's argument for a math problem, which gets their brains revving. Practice Buddy and Quick Check are incredible as well. I utilize those often. Practice Buddy is an online tool that guides students through problems, and similar to IXL, but they like this a bit more. If they're incorrect, it stops them, explains why, and they keep going. And then Quick Check is a little 5-question check to make sure that students understood what I was asking of them for the day. So I typically use this as an exit slip. So overall, we are really, really grateful to have this Envision program, and thank you so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Ava Ciolco. I'm a 7th and 8th grade math teacher at Union Middle School. So very similar to our elementary and upper elementary. We really have the same type of setup with a step 1 and a step 2 and a step 3 process, which makes me really excited because all of these students who are starting this now in 1st grade, when they come to me by 7th grade, they're going to be pros at this, and it's going to be that much more rich of a conversation. So same thing with our upper elementary. We do have a step 1 where we explain it. So again, this is where students haven't learned the topic yet, but they're getting the chance to really critically think and have important discussions. So in the middle school, usually I will have students do this in partners or in small groups of 3, and it takes about 5 to 10 minutes. They get to discuss, they get to think about it, and we get to have amazing conversations. So I find that this math program really opens the door to truly having engaging, rich conversations. I have never seen conversations like this in my math classroom before, and this Envisions program really allows for that. I remember the first week of school, all my 8th graders kind of looked at me, and they were a little bit scared, and they weren't sure exactly how to start this conversation, but literally by day 3, they were excited to talk about it and excited to learn and to continue their learning. So our step 2 is also very similar. We have the visual aids. So our video is maybe 2 minutes long. We can pause, we can talk about it. Students have an activity that goes along with the video, and then we move more into instruction. So same thing in middle school. Our students are using the whiteboards. We have problems displayed up on the board, and more often than not, it's the students really coming to the conclusions on their own. So I'll have my students work in pairs. They'll try to come up with an equation. If we're working on with equations, then the answer, and then they have to explain it. So again, it's a lot of using our vocabulary words and a lot of reading, a lot of writing to explain our thinking. We have try-it problems that students work on as well. And then we move on to the do you know and do you understand. So this is where I back off a little bit and I kind of have students work on their own or in partners, and they can show me, do they know what we just learned and do they understand? And this is where students are kind of practicing and starting to practice independently. We then have our practice and problem solving, which is here. So this is at the end of each unit. And basically this is used for student homework and what we review together for their practice. Now in the middle school in 7th and 8th grade, we have something called Math Excel, which is done on the computer. That's this image right here. And the Math Excel is honestly a great resource. They're very similar problems to the homework problems and to the problems we already did in class. So students have had the chance to practice with these types of word problems, and now they have a chance to show what they know on their own. So we typically do the Math Excels on day 2 or day 3 of a lesson. So students have learned everything, have practiced, now they can show me what they know. But it's really great because it's very guided. So if student can check each problem 2 times and it gives them another chance to get it right. There's also a help me solve this, so they can work through with the computer to see the different steps. There's also videos to help them. And then even if they get it incorrect, it's not an end all be all, because they can say, there's a button and says, show me another problem like this. And then they can try another problem that's the same standard and get the point and get it correct. So it's kind of not just, all right, well, you didn't know it, so we're moving on. It always gives our students another chance to excel and to really understand the content. So that's our step 2. So our step 3, also very similar to the upper elementary, we have a chance now to assign, based on those Math Excels and based on our lesson quizzes, which are like 5 problems, we can now assign remediation and enrichment. So our students they got it, they're getting hundreds and A's on all of the Math Excels and the lesson quizzes. Now the enrichment is going to push them even further. My students who maybe we're having a little bit more trouble or finding the content a little bit more challenging, they can be assigned some remediation problems to kind of show them more the breakdown of it to get them back up to where the rest of the class is. And this is great. And students don't know like who got enrichment and who got remediation because it's sent to them individually on their Chromebooks. So it's kind of just for them to know, for them to go through, and for them to work on. And then again, everything that we're doing, from watching the video, the solve-its, the in-school practice, the practicing at home, the Math Excels, the lesson quizzes, it's all a build-up for then our assessments. The assessments are fantastic because they're really like word problem driven, explain your thinking driven, and it's getting our students to really think critically, which is so important and is going to prep them for the high school so well. So I'm really excited to be using this program. I'm really excited to see the lower elementary and upper elementary students come to the middle school, and they're going to be so prepared by the time they get to me. And I'm just really excited to see it. Yes.
If let's say in a topic a child needs remediation, but the next topic they're doing well, does it constantly update so they can go from remediation?
Definitely.
And what about the assessment? Are the assessments based on their level, or everyone takes the same assessment?
Great questions. Okay, so first question. Each Math Excel and lesson quiz is on a specific lesson. So if we're in Chapter 2, Lesson 1, your student would be assigned remediation or enrichment for that lesson. When we then move on to Unit 2, or lesson 2, excuse me, then if they're doing fantastic, they would be assigned enrichment in that case. So every lesson, depending on how they do, either they can get remediation or enrichment. So they're not like trapped in a remediation only or an enrichment only. It moves with them. And then for the assessments, it is one assessment. So everyone in the class is taking the same assessment, but everyone in the class is getting the same material. So the original Math Excels and the lesson quizzes are all the same. And based on that information, that's where then the enrichment or the remediation is assigned to help them get back to where the class is or above. Thank you.
Perfect. And now few of the things that I'm going to talk about now is, how can you support your child at home as they're going through that? Because I think that's probably why most of us are here. First, I just want to very briefly talk about, and it was mentioned before, the differences between some programs and what we have now. So this is, it's kind of referred to as a workbook, but its official name is a consumable textbook. So in lieu of traditional textbooks that we kind of grew up with, these are these are textbooks that the students can write in. So every year they'll get a new one. So this is like, what it does is it has the whole structure of books that we used to, not be able to put in, and if you don't write in pencil in, they can write all over them. So that's the benefit here, is that they can they're doing the examples instead of watching the examples or reading through the examples. They're actually in these lessons, walking through, writing out their notes as they go through. So it's a little bit of a different kind of shift in how we deal with math and their notebooks and so forth. But these are consumable texts. So for the majority of grades, especially in the younger grades, these are staying in school. I know some of the upper grades are sending them home for different assignments, but this is traditionally what their textbook, but now it's called a consumable textbook. And I have samples up here from different grade levels. So when we're done, if anybody wants to kind of just come take a look, you're more than welcome to kind of feel around. I have kindergarten, grade 2, grade 4, and then the accelerated grade 7 consumable textbook here. So how can you support your child? And there's going to be, I have QR codes for everybody later. You can take a look. Envision provides a family engagement. So I'm just going to, let's say, go to 4th grade here. So you guys can take a look here. We have links to these websites. This is completely for family support at home. What it does is it breaks it down by topic. So when I'm in 4th grade here, I can go up all the way on the top, on the right here, and look at topic support, or I can just kind of scroll down and say, you know what, I'm going to look here. My child's in topic 3. I want to go look, what are some strategies they're doing? What are they learning in topic 3 right now as they're trying to multiply by 1-digit numbers? So it gives an overview. Here's the overview of kind of the theory, the steps behind the process that they're working with. Gives you an example, kind of walks you through. Different strategies. So the first one we're dealing with here, like breaking down the distributive property. Here we're looking at models and partial products. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit more because that's the overview of that whole entire topic. But then down below, they have specific lessons. So you can say, my child right now, they're in lesson, let's say 3.2. What are they learning in 3.2? How is it? Here's an additional practice exercise that they provide for you to try at home with the example written out. You can see. Here's a home activity. Here's an activity that kind of gives a little thing. You can kind of make it sometimes. I don't know if multiplying by 1-digit numbers can be fun, but some of them on the younger levels, they definitely have some fun activities for you to do, to walk through, taking up paper clips and putting them in pairs and so forth. So, different activities that way. What they have is, if your child says they're struggling and you want to get a better understanding, there's this visual learning animation, which they had talked about before. I don't know if it's going to be loud enough, but just so you can kind of see, this is a video that they're watching in class.
How can you estimate when you multiply?
And this,
Mr. Hector's class sold calendar.
and so this is what they're looking at in class. So then you can listen to the strategies that they're learning as well if they're struggling and you want to get a better understanding. It's taught, our strategies are different now than what we had learned. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's hard for us to help our children at home when our strategies are a little bit different, just multiply them. That's what we're thinking in our head. Why are we drawing out 100 blocks? I don't understand. That's why my husband's never allowed to help my son with his math homework. But I get it. And that is hard because that's not how we learned. But these strategies are teaching our children to be better critical thinkers. And that's ultimately the end game. They don't want to just memorize multiplying. They want to have different strategies as they go through.
So you said this is exactly what they would be seeing in the classroom, but then the page back,
Yep.
those examples and at home.
Those are different ones. Those are strictly for you to use at home. Yep, absolutely. So those videos are going to be, so these are just different examples that they haven't seen before. This is a different at-home activity that they haven't seen before. Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm also wondering, a lot of what you guys are presenting about is kind of showing a lot of different ways to go about a problem.
Yep.
Critical thinking. All that takes time,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
What I noticed is that starting, I think in grade 1, maybe in grade 2, you're having to do like addition, subtraction, multiplication in 4 minutes, 2 minutes,
Yep.
1 minute. And one of the struggles that my daughter, let's say, had last year was that, she was taught 4 different ways to solve the problem.
Yep.
And now she's got 2 minutes to do it. And she's stressed out and she's confused which one to use.
Yep.
And she's a thinker, she's an overthinker. So how are you integrating this
Yep.
with that?
Absolutely. So I think with a lot of that is that there are so many different ways that children learn, so having all these different strategies in, what I like to call their toolbox is really beneficial for all learners. Now, we do have children that sometimes are overthinking and which strategy do I use? The beautiful thing about all these strategies and what hopefully her teachers are reinforcing and what you can reinforce is that they can all be used. Pick your favorite. Eventually, as they get older, they're going to start to come up with what's their favorite strategy. What's the one that makes sense to them the most? And maybe in second grade, it might be one strategy, but third grade, they see and they're like, oh, this one makes way more sense. So I think the important thing is having all those in their toolbox, but then starting to develop the skills to figure out what's the best one for me when we're doing those fact fluency. Because it's the timed assessments or timed, making sure is that fact fluency is also very important. Being able to quickly look at a problem and know that 4 times 2 is 8 is very important because that being able to do that quickly can then tie into when I'm multiplying 324 times 28, that being able to do 2 times 4 real fast is important to build that fact fluency. However, coming up with these different strategies are going to help her eventually when she's looking at that 300, whatever example I just gave, that maybe the number using, our 100 blocks might be the best strategy for her to understand as she goes through. So eventually all these strategies, they'll start to develop which one's going to be the one that they prefer, and on assessments. And if they're sitting down and doing their homework, eventually, right now, those probably in first and second grade, each topic will be on different strategies, but eventually it's going to come to use your favorite strategy. Mm-hmm.
How do you, is the pre-algebra and algebra 1 also part of revision? And how do you now determine which kids go to pre-algebra and which kids?
So there are some requirements, which I'd be happy, I don't want to kind of get too crazy because that's a little bit of a different, but there are some requirements that we use once they're in 6th grade that you'll get information about halfway through 6th grade in terms of their Lincoln scores or looking at their overall average to determine how. Okay, so to get back to this very quickly, every grade level has this. Okay, so by the coffee station on your way out, hopefully as you grab munchkins because there's a lot left, there is, and I'll pass these around. You guys are a great crowd. I'm so happy so many people came. I didn't anticipate this many, so I only have 3 of these. But we have on our website, we have links to all of these broken down by grade level. So if you go on and you scan this code on your way out, here's a kindergarten resources. You can scan this, and it's going to take you directly to their it's going to take you to our website where you can click the link to go right to their website. And those will have those resources, which take you directly to this website here that you can go through. And what that looks like, just very quickly, when you'll see on our website, if you lose the QR code, it's okay. If it goes away, what you can do is you go right to rutherfordschools.org. You'll scroll down right over here on the side. One of our quick links is the Parent Academy. And this is where you can find this. We have a wealth of resources here. And if you scroll through, you'll see here in the middle, kindergarten resources, lower elementary, upper elementary, middle school. Click on whatever grade band pertains to you. And there's a post right in there that will take you to these websites. Okay, so that's just in case when you scan it in, if you don't want to bookmark it on your phone, you can use this, quick website right through rutherfordschools.org to reference where you're going to, where you want to go. I also very quickly want to show you, and this does not pertain necessarily to really our kindergarten first, second, and maybe our third by the end of the year, but what the online platform looks like. So if your child is in maybe, towards the end of third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, they're coming home, or up through eighth grade, they're coming home and they're doing these the problems on the computer, okay? Because I'll be perfectly honest, I live in Rutherford, my son's in fourth grade, he's coming home a lot of days where he's doing this on the computer. What we have here, and I'm just hoping I'm still logged in. Yes, I am logged in. So this is a teacher end, so it's gonna look slightly different, but their class will pop right up here, okay? So they're gonna see right away, and they're gonna see what an assignment looks like. So they're going to log in. I'm just gonna preview what this assignment looks like, because this is what it looks like on the student end. So they're gonna go in. Here's their on grades up to grades 5. They call it the practice buddy. Teachers will probably assign it as a different name just so you know what homework it is. But here's what it will look like. They're going to break down, and they're going to start off with an example most of the time that kind of breaks it down problem by problem, step by step, learning how to multiply these using the strategies. You can click on a picture here that's going to bring up your place value block, so you can help you. It visualizes, here's what this number may look like here, okay? When we're looking at 324 times 2, here's 324, here's 324. So they can visualize it. A lot of teachers might be having the students draw, obviously not putting all 100 blocks in there, but big blocks, the tall skinny blocks and the tiny blocks to visualize it. But here's a picture right for them. So they can look at it and say, okay, there's 600, 6 of my hundredths, and go forward from there. And this helps them break them down. Now, they're struggling. At the bottom of every question is view an example. So they can go here and say, all right, here's an example, 3 times 223. I can click on the image. Here's an image again. Now, how do I go from here? We click continue on the bottom, and it walks them through step by step, okay? And it's going to give them all the information, how it breaks it down. So not only then they help, but if they're asking you like, oh, I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing here, you can look real quick and say, all right, here's how we do this, and that way sometimes it's just a very quick refresher that they need on what the steps to take. They also can get a video. So there's a video that pops up. Sometimes it's a video they saw in class, sometimes it's different. This one, in this case, it's another look. So here's a video that that talks about this strategy using arrays to multiply. So there are, once they get to this point, and I think Ms. Yoko actually had mentioned this, get more help. So here's some math tools they can use. Here's a glossary. So there are a lot of resources when they're going through. And again, this is more for it's grade 3, I think, will probably start implementing it because they're bringing their Chromebooks home. But as they get to higher level grades, there's so many resources when they're going through these problems that they can click on to help them and then help you. Okay? Yes? We're the same. Yep, we are streamlined from K to 8 that they are. Now, a day-to-day lesson may look a little bit different based on teacher practice and how they're going through. They might be a few days off, but in theory, everybody, the entire district, Washington, Lincoln, we are on the same page in terms of everybody's using this program. They are meeting. They had their professional development together. So, all kindergarten through second grade teachers sat down together, Washington, Lincoln. The whole afternoon was designed, hey, all second grade teachers, you're sitting at this table. Let's talk about strategies. Hey, first grade, you're here. So that way we can make sure that everybody is equitable across the district. Okay? So those are kind of just some ways that you can help out and you can support your child. Thank you. Good. Yes.
My issue with my fourth grader is they'll have like 10, let's say, 4x4 digit subtraction with multiple and it's on the computer and he doesn't even want to write on it. So he's sitting there going, oh,
Yes.
so this is going to repeat
Yep.
this. He's writing the first digit down and sometimes he's going
Yep.
left to right instead of right to left.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. They don't need to like show anything.
So I think that's teacher practice. I think some teachers require, some teachers do not. I think, and it depends on what they're teaching. So I can't say for sure. I want to say that's more of a teacher practice, whether they're requiring. I know in school, they're writing it down. They're putting it on their notebook. So I would probably encourage them at home to write them down. I know that's easier said than done, way easier said than done. But I think that's more teacher practice on whether the teacher's requiring them to write down the work and bring it in and show it. I cannot say. Most of the time it's on paper. Yep.
Even through 8th grade?
Yep. I think most of the time you could. I mean, some assessments, it depends.
In 7th and 8th grade, we do paper.
Yep, but I think up to that point, they're doing the assessments on paper.
So, I know you're saying you can't say what's happening in each classroom as far as what's done on paper, but my son's been insisting that this whole mental math thing is being pushed and not to do things on paper.
And it depends, that could be by topic. So some topics might be, it depends on what they're learning. There may be some topics where we are working on fact fluency and it all depends on what the strategy is. Some strategies are mental math and then some strategies are paper. So, that's where it's kind of hard to say. There are definitely some topics where you've got to write it down and you're going to have to. There are some topics that we're estimating you want to do that mental math. So it's hard to say by, it's probably based by topic as well. Teacher practice and by topic as well. So, yeah.
My daughter is independent about her homework.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how. Can I go into the website and check what is she doing, how she's especially about how she does think? I need to.
You would have to log in with her credentials, so you'd have to go through, like, the only way to see what her homework assignments were on the platform would be to log in as using her Chromebook or to go in and ask her to show you. There's not really a way that we have a teacher a parent access to the homework assignments. What I do think, though, and this is something that I think is important to remember, it's okay to get problems wrong. It's okay. They don't have to get hundreds or get every homework assignment completely correct. If they are struggling, have them work through, have them show their work, have them write that down, and send it in and let their teacher see what they're doing, because that's going to be the best way. I think sometimes, we want to make sure they're understanding it and we're going through and we're showing all the strategies and we're helping them a little too much. So then they get to school and the teacher sees, oh, they've got them all right. That's not helping anybody. So it's okay for them to struggle a little bit. This is, the idea behind a lot of this is starting off with the word problem is that it's an idea of productive struggle. That you're working through something that maybe you're not 100% sure how to do, but you're working on different strategies. So I think it's important to remember they don't have to have every single question correct, okay? You're not doing them any favors by doing it for them or walking them through every single example. Let them write it out. Let them show the teacher. It's going to benefit the teacher if they see, here's the strategies they use. The teacher's going to be able to quickly pick up on a misconception and be able to help them. But if you're kind of writing them through or trying to use strategies that we use that maybe, hey, do it this way instead, don't do it the teachers, that's not going to help them. Okay, so please keep that in mind as they are going through, that it is okay for them to have that struggle. Okay, that's good for them. They're going to, if it's especially in the younger grades, because if they're getting comfortable and they're okay that, hey, maybe this doesn't make sense, maybe I need a little bit more help. Once they get to the harder stuff, once they get to Algebra 2, they're going to have no problem asking for help. They're going to have no problem when it's a struggle. So I think it's important that they get that idea that it's okay to need a little bit more support, or it's okay to struggle through. So, please keep that in mind. Absolutely.
Do I need one of those things?
Yes, you do need one of these things. Here you go. Here you go.
Here, hold it. You might wonder why you can't hear us any better. This is just for the video. I just wanted to, first of all, I wanted to thank Ms. Coy, who's coordinating the Parent Academy. I wanted to thank, obviously, the presenters. I thought were great. They volunteered for this, and because they were excited about the program. And Ms. Schmedding, she didn't volunteer. She's a supervisor. She had to do it. And then Ms. Saxon and Mr. Garcia for hosting it and inviting everybody. Right, we expected a handful. We got like about 12 handfuls. And Mr. Ryan, who's making his debut as a videographer. So if you're having any birthday parties or whatever, he's available. But I do want to comment on a couple of things. I was an English teacher, so I'm not going to comment on math, okay? But I do want to comment on the overriding philosophies, right, that you heard. You heard the word rigor a lot in the beginning, right? We want to increase rigor, but the word we like to use is appropriate rigor, right? What's rigorous for me might not be the same as what's rigorous for you. So we want to have children and students, we want to have adults, we want to have teachers, right? Superintendents move at the pace is appropriate for them. Appropriate rigor is a key. And obviously there's a goal we all want to get to, right? So we might get to it in grade 3, we might get to it in grade 8, but we're going to move along at an appropriate pace. The second thing, the choices that they make, when I was in school, there were no choices to make. You did it one way and that was it. We don't work that way anymore, right? I mean, our jobs are not like that anymore. Our home life is not like that anymore. I have grandchildren now. I look at their parents negotiating with them. I mean, I don't know. Nobody negotiated. Nobody negotiated with me when I was a kid, right? So it's a different world that we live in, right? And our profile of the graduate that we're putting, right, talks about creative and critical thinking, right? We want our kids to have creative and critical thinking. There shouldn't just be one way to solve a problem, whether it's math or whether it's, what to have for dinner, right? There shouldn't be just one way to solve a problem, okay? And then the most important thing is, we were talking about this Anxious Generation book and kids with anxiety. And, a lot of it's attributed, we're going to say, to cell phone. How about a lot of it being attributed? Everybody has to be great. It's okay to fail, right? It's okay to make a mistake. There's a guy, his name just went out of my head. He's a Wharton professor who has a whole bunch of, Adam Grant, okay, who talks about the reflection period on what we've done wrong is the greatest way to learn, right? So we shouldn't get upset if they're struggling a little bit. But more importantly, they shouldn't get upset, right? They have to be told, okay, let's figure out what went wrong. Critical, creative thinking, and let's get it better. So, new programs, new approaches are sometimes scary. It shouldn't meant to be. I mean, these smiling faces, I was ready to, buy a car from them. They were so, okay? It shouldn't be scary, right? But the object is not to be great today. If we could do that, wonderful. The object is to build, right, to a better finish, right? So try to keep that in mind, okay? And not just about math, about every subject, about if they're out for a sports team, whatever, right? It's building and building on your mistakes to get stronger, okay? So anything else we have to say? If you have any individual questions, I'm sure they'll be around. You have the QR codes to, like me talking about QR codes. I'm used to clay tablets, right? You do that.
I'll leave one up here. I'll throw
We're going
one
to ask that even if you want to go get some munchkins and whatever, if you leave out this way, not to disrupt the classes. If you want to see this again, it's going to be posted in a couple of days on the Parent Academy website. If any of your friends you couldn't be here, tell them they could see it on the video. If you want to go back and see it again. We have a whole bunch of upcoming Parent Academy things on the Anxious Generation, on phonics. We're going to have a couple of more popping up down the road, I think on RTI program and things like that. So keep looking for them. They'll be floating around between here, Lincoln, and Pierpont. And all of them will be posted online a few days after, okay? So thank you all for, yes? We're using the book as a discussion point, yes. We're going to talk about what we took from the book and what we want to share and how it maybe augments things we're already seeing and thinking about. So there's not a need to read the book. It's not a need to, there won't be an assessment, okay? Remember, but if you fail the assessment, don't worry about it, right? Right. You come back to the second workshop, you do better, okay? All right. So, but please, if you try to attend these, and if you can't, then look at them online a few days after. That depends on how quickly Mr. Ryan can edit it and get it up and running. Okay. Hopefully, maybe actually a month or so. No, it'll be a few days. Right. Okay. Yes. One question in the back.
So I know you guys talk about amazing and you're talking about how we want kids to think and have different methods. A lot of kids have different methods of learning also. So the issue I'm running into with my coworker is everything's online. So there's, she's watching a video to reference back a problem with that and she's frustrated because it's too fast. So I'm sitting there trying to help her, we're writing it down on paper. So is there any way where we can get copies of the pages they're learning? Because I know myself, I need to rewrite things. I need to have physical copies.
Yeah. What grade? What grade?
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade?
So there are thank you. For every online component, there absolutely is a paper component, minus the Practice Buddy or the Math Excel or the Quick Check. So absolutely. you can contact the teacher. It's not available on the student end, but on the teacher end, it absolutely is. So there can be tangibles for everything.
Would we ever allow the K through ever to bring the notebooks for the workbooks home? Like I have a first grader, I'm sitting there with her and it's like ask the question like, how did you get them? And I as a parent am like, I don't know what she should put down, and she looked at me and I'm like, because you can't. I don't, but like I don't know. So I feel like if I had the workbook and I could see what they learned, how to answer the question, I could hear her.
So a few things. One is, I would also say if she should just put down whatever she's thinking. To be honest, you know, like, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's almost like the question's like, how? And it's like, we'll have to be like, the sky is blue because.
And then you know what? And I also and I get what you're saying, but it's if they sometimes think like the reason is I added the numbers, then that's okay. Then maybe that's what it is, you know. And I think.
Like there's one question and there's 3 questions. She's right. I get it.
And but then you know what? And that's okay. Let her, and her teacher can also address that with her too, you know, and her teacher can come up with those strategies. But I do understand what you're saying there. I have to, it's something to look into. On the student end, there is a downloadable textbook, but I know they're not taking their Chromebooks home. So that is definitely something that I will look into, that maybe we can see if there's an option. I don't know for sure, but it's something I will absolutely look into. Yep, absolutely.
Is there like a link or something for like an LLT class or like a special education class that we can go to?
So the lessons are the same, but I would touch base with their teacher in terms of how they're taking the topics and putting it appropriately and where they are. So I think that would be more definitely, I would reach out to their teacher to see where they're fall. Yep, absolutely, because I think that depends on, you know, student and class. Yep.
In terms of the workflow, you mentioned that the hardest part is tearing it off.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, do they take the pages home?
That's.
It depends. My students, they do. We rip them out at the start of class. This way they can go home. I don't know if every teacher is doing that or if they're living in the workbook. That might be teacher preference. But it's something that maybe the teacher takes them all, sends them home at the end of the unit, at the end of the class. I don't know. I can only speak for second grade teachers. I know that here at Washington, we do rip them out. And I was just joking that it's like getting started.
Yeah.
To her point.
Yeah.
I wish we had that for 4th grade as well, because it is just so my child can reference it back, watching the video. And I mean, even I try to help her with her homework, she gets frustrated, and I understand that they can get it wrong. When your child's like, we did this in class, but I have no idea what's going on, because maybe they're too shy to say, can you slow down? Can you do this? And as a parent, I want to help.
Yep.
So they can just understand it, but I can understand it.
And like that point is like a great one for us, for our takeaway of it, right? So
Yeah.
now we have a new program, this is how it's done before, but it's like, okay, how do we now like optimize that next step?
Yep,
So it might
absolutely.
be like right now, it might be like, all right, let's have that discussion. So there's, I think, just even that type of conversation, as we live the experience, then we can say, okay, parents wanted some more feedback, parents need this, how do we guide them from there? So I think there's a lot.
Absolutely.
But I think, I know our teachers have to teach today. So I don't think there'd be this many people. I'm like hoping that their principals don't,
Yeah, we probably do have to wrap it up, but
If-
the
I
thing
will
is-
stick around, so if there are any other questions,
But-
please feel free.
Just
But
so you understand too, I mean, I don't know, if you don't hear me right now, it's okay, I'm not saying much of it. No, it's the video. You know, these concerns, these questions, Ms. Schmedding will bring it back, talk to the teachers, talk to the building administrators, and if it can be done, we'll do it, or if there's another workaround, we'll figure it out. But the other thing is, you know, don't ever hesitate to send an email to your child's teacher, or if you see them at drop-off and pickup, to ask a simple question. I mean, sometimes it's as easy as just asking it. It may not be something they're thinking about, and they say, oh, sure, they'll get it done, right? So, you know, we want to work together on this, right? So if you have a question, ask, okay? But we do have to let them back to their class, or the people covering for them are going to get annoyed they have to cover all day. Okay? So, again, thank you all, but Ms. Schmedding will hang around if you have
Yep.
anything, okay?
thank you.